So the reading is coming from Matthew 9, beginning to read at verse 18. And it follows a period where Jesus had been teaching John's disciples. While he was saying this, a ruler came and knelt before him and said, "My daughter has just died, but come and put your hand on her, and she will live." Jesus got up and went with him, and so did his disciples. Just then, a woman who'd been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak. She said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be healed." Jesus turned and saw her. "Take heart, daughter," he said. "Your faith has healed you." And the woman was healed from that moment. When Jesus entered the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the noisy crowd, he said, "Go away. The girl is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took the girl by the hand, and she got up. News of this spread through all that region. This is the word of the Lord.
So I wonder if any of you have ever been somewhere you shouldn't have been. And I wonder if you have, why you went there. Was it just that idle curiosity got the better of you? Or was there another reason? Many years ago, I was sent to our new building for a meeting. Only a few parts of the building were up and running. The decorators were in, the building was being fitted out. On the way back from the meeting, I must have taken a wrong turn. Ask anybody who knows me and they will tell you my sense of direction is missing. Nods of assent from the front there, and agreement. Anyway, as I was saying, I'd come through some being decorated area on the way, and so I just pressed the exit button on the door and walked through. And when I got into the stairwell, I realized that it was just a concrete shell and there was nothing there. So I turned around, but before I could do anything, the door had shut, and it's one of those doors with a big magnetic lock on it. So I take my card out and I swipe my card in the door swipe, and the little red light stays stubbornly red. What to do now? Well, I walk up and down the stairwell. I entered on the ground floor. There are 3 basements and 6 floors. And I walked up and down and I tried every swipe on every door twice. All the same. Nothing happened. But I had noticed that on the 2nd floor there was a fire escape. So I thought, that's my way out. Rather than wait for some builder to turn up, I'll go through the fire escape. So out I go through the fire escape expecting alarms to go off. Nothing happened. And I'm out on somebody else's roof. And I'm looking around and I find on the other side of this roof there's a metal stairs, which is their fire escape, I guess. So I go down the metal stairs and I'm in a builder's yard. And all the while I'm thinking, somebody's going to stop me, somebody's going to arrest me. But nothing happened, and I managed to get back on the street through the builder's yard okay. I just tried to pretend that I knew what I was doing and knew where I was going. And there I was. So that was my little experience of being somewhere I probably shouldn't have been. And I was very nervous while I was there. But now we're going to look at the courage that this woman had, because she shouldn't have been where she was. So I'm going to try and do a little bit of a reconstruction. And I need a volunteer. Come on then. Hello, well done. Now, I'm going to create a crowd, okay? So, can we have a crowd, please? 4 or 5 or 6 people, just come forward. Big people, little people, it doesn't matter. Right. If you'd like to crowd round the lectern, that would be great. Crowd round the lectern. Come on, a few more, a few more. You've got to make it difficult for her to get to. Crowd round the lectern. You stay here. A few more, come on, a few more. Another two, perhaps. That's lovely. Right. Now, we'll pretend that somewhere in there is Jesus, and you've got to go and touch the lectern, because we're assuming that the lectern represents Jesus for now. Okay? So you lot are paying attention to Jesus, not to her. You don't know what's going on. Right, off you go. You've got to touch the lectern. Go on, squeeze through. Well done. Thank you very much, crowd. Thank you very much. Well, Ella, I don't think that took too much courage, did it? No. So why did I say that we were going to look at the courage of the woman? Well, you have to remember that things were very different in Jesus' time. First of all, there were no antibiotics. If you caught something, you could quite easily die from it. It was even hard to keep clean. Who washes their hands before they eat? Yeah, quite a lot of you. Well, when I was a child, that was an absolute rule. You must wash your hands before you eat. But they couldn't even do that because they didn't have soap. Soap wasn't invented until the Middle Ages. So it was really difficult for them to keep clean. In Jesus' time, it was best to stay healthy by avoiding anything that might, just possibly might, be able to infect you. And the Jews had some very, very strict hygiene rules. And I guess they worked quite well. Touching other people's blood or touching a dead body was absolutely forbidden. It's what we call a taboo. This is a little piece from the Old Testament that talks about it. It's in Leviticus 15 if you want to read it later. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days at a time, other than her monthly period, or has a discharge that continues beyond her period, she will be unclean as long as she has the discharge, just as in the days of her period. Any bed she lies on while her discharge continues will be unclean, as is her bed during her monthly period. And anything she sits on will be unclean, as during her period. Whoever touches them will be unclean. He must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean until evening. Now do you see what happened? She has made everyone she touched unclean. So all of those who were in the crowd, would you please now leave the church and go and wash your clothes and take a bath. And we'll see you tomorrow. But the woman was desperate. If we read the story as it's told in Mark and Luke, we will see that she had spent all her money on doctors. But she had continued to get worse. And now she was poor as well. There was nothing else to do. The only chance was that Jesus could cure her. And she couldn't possibly go boldly up to him and ask him, because if she was recognized, she would be punished and her chance would be gone. Her only option was to sneak up behind Jesus and to touch his cloak. That might work, but it was the risky thing to do. But that is what she did. And Jesus says, "Your faith has made you well." And that word that is translated, "your faith has made," the well word, or healed word, does it say well or healed? I can't remember. Your faith has healed you. So the word healed has the same meaning in our language as saved, rescued, or delivered. So we could say, your faith has rescued you, or your faith has saved you. So what's faith? Let's have a little illustration of faith. I need another volunteer, please. Would one of you young people like to volunteer for me? Because we're going to have Ella again, who's really keen, or somebody else. Come on then, Rebecca. Let's have somebody else. Right. Do you mind if I put a blindfold on you? I hope she said no. No, you're not supposed to sit down. You're not supposed to sit down. You have to stand up. Right. We're going to try and not cut the blood supply from your eyes, but we are going to stop you seeing. Right. Can you see anything?
No.
No? Not a thing. Good. Right. Walk with me. Very gently. That's right. Round there. Round there. Round there. Where are you? Point to the cross. Right, that's good. That's okay. You stand right there. Be very still. Be very still. Now, Ella, if you have faith in me... Sorry, Ella. Sorry, Rebecca. Now, Rebecca, if you have faith in me, sit down. Go on, give it a try. Oh. Well done, Rebecca. Thank you very much. Let's take that off you. Thank you very much. Well done. You can go and sit down in your proper seat now. Thank you. So Rebecca doesn't trust me, and I can't blame her at all. But had she sat down when I said sit down, had she sat down straight away without even the slightest hesitation, that would have been true faith. In Mark and Luke, the leader is described as a leader of the synagogue. There would normally have been 2 or 3 of those, so perhaps it was a position roughly akin to our church warden. It certainly carried expectations. There were ways of behaving, and you had to be careful whose company you would keep. But neither of these things mattered anymore. Nothing matters when your child has died. Instead of being aloof and only associating with the right people, our leader has knelt before Jesus, someone who has upset many of the Jewish leaders. But he's desperate. He's begging Jesus just to come and touch his daughter so that she will live. The interruption caused by the woman must have been awful for him. Mark and Luke recalled Jesus saying to him, "Have faith." In other words, keep on believing. When Jesus finally arrives at the home of the girl who's just died, the mourners are already there. The large, noisy crowd, the wailing has begun. Death was common, and people knew what it looked like. So, when Jesus says, "Go away, she's only sleeping," it's not surprising that they laugh at him. Once the crowd has finally gone, Jesus goes in and touches the dead body of the girl. And immediately she gets up. And it's not surprising at all that the news spread far and wide and quickly. It's a sign that Jesus is someone very special. But Jesus has broken 2 of the most important taboos today. Okay, the first one he didn't really have a lot of choice in, did he? But he shouldn't have continued with the crowd. At that point, he should have left to purify himself. Just as I asked those in the crowd to leave the church, he shouldn't have continued, he should have gone. And on the second occasion, of course, it was completely his own free will. Nobody forced him to go in and touch that girl. He should be unclean. In Numbers 19:11, it says, "Whoever touches the dead body of anyone will be unclean for 7 days." So he should have been out of circulation for 7 days. And then following on from that verse, there are other purification rules about how you bring yourselves back to being clean. But with Jesus, the rules of the world are overturned. Instead of the touch causing him to become infected and polluted and unclean, the opposite is true. The one who touched him, or the one he touches, becomes clean, purified, well. They have been made healthy. They have been rescued, saved, or delivered from their affliction, or even from death. We could call this the Jesus effect. When I spoke to you last, a few weeks back, I spoke about Bartimaeus. And he was in a similar position, blind and desperate to see. And he worked out who Jesus was. You may remember he shouted out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Just like the woman and the leader in today's reading, he had seen the power that Jesus possesses. So why didn't Jesus just stay in Israel and heal all of the sick people? That's because Jesus knew that the Jesus effect was so much greater. He had a plan, and he was busy making it happen. On the way, he met some desperate people who needed a lifeline right now. So he stopped. He put his plan in abeyance for just a few moments and turned to help them. He knew he could because they had put their faith in him. Mark and Luke both record that Jesus senses the touch of the woman and feels power drain from him. How much power must he have used to bring the girl back to life? Jesus always knew that there was a cost to what he was doing. He knew that ultimately that cost would be his life. And in giving up his life the way he did, voluntarily, meant that all those who are desperate for his healing, for his purifying touch, to be rescued from their afflictions, can have access to it. Not just those in Israel, near Jerusalem. Sorry guys, we're editing the tape later. You don't have to be desperate to need rescuing. Maybe there are many things you could spend your money on that might save you. Many belief systems that you could try to prevent death. But the lesson from today is that they won't work. There is only one way to be saved from the pollution, from the infection, from the death that this world ultimately brings. Just like the woman and the leader of the synagogue and Bartimaeus, we must trust our lives to Jesus. Only when we have put our faith in him can he save us. This is the Jesus effect for us. Remember what he said. Your faith has rescued you. One of the blogs I read is written by a guy called John Cowart. He's a relatively unsuccessful author. And he and his wife are both getting on in years. They're both in their upper 70s. His wife was recently taken to hospital after a fainting spell. And after a lot of inconclusive tests, John writes, talking about the doctor and his wife. Her Christian approach to possible death impressed him, I think. She said, "I'm not afraid of dying. It's just another damn nuisance we have to go through." That's faith. She knows that she's been rescued and that death will not be the end for her. I wonder what I would say in a similar situation.